Okay.
Hello and welcome to Jude's for the final reading of the 9th Cascadia Poetry Festival. See? Even though everybody is full, look at it, that energy that we have in this room. Holy cow. Do you know how grateful we are to Jude's for opening up their house to us? That shows you just a little bit of the gratitude that we have for Jude's, this neighborhood institution, which is employee-owned. Yeah. Right? What a model for the future here, right now, in Rainier Beach, that employees can benefit as well as everyone who's part of this institution. I think that's fantastic. And they've opened up another venue, Rosette, right down the street here. What does Rosette do exactly, Liz? It's kind of low alcohol kind of stuff?
It's a wine bar and low alcoholic mocktails. It's amazing. So it's for more of the type of crowd. And it's really nice. It's cozy. Yeah.
Nice and cozy.
And you should check it out. Their hours are 3 to 9 p.m.
3 to 9 p.m. at Rosette, right up the street. Before you get, if you've gone to Red Wing, you've gone too far. So that gives you some kind of an idea. So we are going to have a reading here, mostly for Winter in America again. But as I was telling people, people like, what's Jude's like? I live in Milwaukee. I've never been there. I said, oh man, they have mezcal. Like you would not believe. You just have to have a tablespoon of it and you're already getting a buzz. I'm not kidding. And Brenda Cárdenas says, oh, I have a mezcal poem. And I said, well, whip it out. And so she did, except it's not a mezcal poem. But we're going to still let her do this because it will serve as our invocation for tonight. So please welcome, all the way from the home of the Milwaukee Brewers, Brenda Cárdenas.
I thought it was a mezcal poem, and it's actually a pulque poem. So do you know pulque? Who knows pulque, right?
Did you drink enough for everyone?
Oh, almost. Little stronger than mezcal, although I was just, how do I do this? I was just in Mexico this summer and I was in the region of Oaxaca, which is known for mezcal. And I got to visit the best mezcal maker in Oaxaca. And it was fantastic. Like we were taste testing right there. Okay? So this is pulque, but we can pretend it's mezcal. Pulque. Pulque is not a cocktail. It's a green zebra under whose heirloom you will ride a broom and cackle your way to the blackberry patch. A psilocybin of sorts, it will yield no anonymity. So dip your brandy wine tongue into this batch and taste the 100-year flood of clamor and regret. The braid of daft decisions you've made in the undercurrent. Oh yes, you've crowed, I'm sorry, slurped more lore and flung your satchel to the floor because why weigh yourself down? Why carry so many corny stories about the one who got away? Maudlin poems about lush language, slurp, slurp, slurp. Pulque is not a cocktail. It sharpens maguey scalpels for surgery. It's a green zebra, I tell you, from whose sagging back you will tumble headfirst into tomorrow. Gracias.
Más pulque, por favor! All right. I just got another bucket list item. That's fantastic. The last couple of festivals, one of the things we've done in the closing reading is honor poets who have died since the last festival. And there are probably many, but two in particular we're going to talk about tonight. And the first person to honor a departed poet is he's on the board of directors of the Cascadia Poetics Lab. His term is ending in December. He made it through two 4-year terms. He made it 8 years on the board of the Cascadia Poetics Lab. That in itself is worth a round of applause, but still, please welcome Matt Trease.
So, we had the joy of having Pierre Jory out here. Joris. out here in, was it 2022?
I think so.
Yeah. And so for those who don't know, Pierre is one of the eminent translators of poetry, 20th century, is the translator of Paul Celan, and translated works by numerous poets like the Moroccan surrealist Mohammed Kahir and others. Was also worked with Jerome Rothenberg on Poets for the Millennium anthologies and whatnot, and is one of the inspirations for the day song ritual. His Canto Diurno, which is a 24-hour exercise in writing the longest poem you can within a day. And he called it Canto Diurno because the daytime, to focus on the hours of the sunlight. So, I thought I would, it was good to hang out with Pierre, and he and I went down and had some sake and sushi down in Federal Way, and talked a lot about the rises in the cost of living and how things were different in New York in the 60s and all those kind of things, and how poets might survive and whatnot. So he's a wonderful human being and a great poet, and I'll read this. I'm not going to read the Canto Diurno because that might take us quite a while, but I'll read this short piece by Pierre to kind of give a sense of how he approaches this idea of translation as kind of a type of collaboration. And so this is Shakespeare's sonnet number 71, re-Englished after Paul Celan's German version without consulting the original. So it's a bit like the, Pierre Menard from Borges, the Quixotes that's bigger than Quixotes. You should, once I'm gone, mourn only as long as you hear the bell, the dark one from the tower, as long as it needs to tell the world, he who lived with you went to live with the worms. This I write, but you, having read it, forgot who wrote it. For look, I love you. I wish I'd never been on your mind. For when you think of me, sorrow steals upon you. You should let, once your gaze rests upon these words, once I'm dust, dust and no longer, love, become what I became. And my name, do not speak it again. The world, wise-eyed, already looks for your tears. Me, now gone, with you to taunt. Yep. And I didn't bring my drink. But let's raise one for Pierre Joris.
Pierre Joris. Okay, we have one more memorial, and here to do that to a poet who died since our last fest is Brenda Hillman.
So hi everyone. So much to say about our weekend together. So we would like to bring into the room and in all the elements the beautiful figure of Alice Notley, we just lost very recently. I have a couple of things written down about her, and then I want to read two little pieces. But starting with a quote from Alice, poetry outlasts everything. It's a primeval spirit. It's probably the first speech. It comes with speech. It's what children do when they play with their first words, and it comes from nowhere, and it always goes on. So Alice was born in 1945 in Bisbee, and she grew up in Needles. And you wouldn't sort of always detect that she had these southwestern roots, but she did identify very often with desert poetry. She was educated at Barnard and at the Writer's Workshop, and again, you wouldn't think of her as sort of that particular kind of education, but because she became such a renegade poet. But she did have those sort of classical roots. She married Ted Berrigan in 1972, and she had 2 sons, and they settled in New York City's Lower East Side, and she didn't identify with the New York school movement, but she's often identified with the second generation of New York school. And as you probably know, New York school writing is very identified with freshness, with cross-disciplinary, lots of influence, by artists across, painters influencing writers and vice versa. And she received fellowships from a National Endowment, and then Ted died in 1983, and she married British poet Doug Oliver, and they lived together till his death. So yeah, she really embodied in lots of ways the New York school, but she did also have her own combining many impulses of her generation. She writes about not just the desert, the environment, the city, but also about motherhood, domestic life from the very beginning. She was kind of rooted, and certainly one of my earliest models for somebody who could do that sort of outside of the Plathian thing that is just not going to work out for mothers and domestic life. Anne Sexton, for my generation, it was the models were like Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath. And then the older sisters, like Alice Notley was one of them, my older sister models. And one of her most powerful techniques, I'm going to read a little piece in a second, she started using punctuation in very antinomian ways, very rule-breaking ways. And it provided models for some of us who wanted to just break rules with our look of our poems. She was extremely prolific, so she used quotes around phrases in some of her earliest experiments with form. She was extremely prolific. She had 40 books, and some of her best-known collections: Songs and Stories of the Ghouls, Grave of Light, Mysteries of Small Houses, Disobedience. She won quite a few prizes, should have won more. She had the International Griffin Prize, the San Francisco Poetry Award, Los Angeles Times Award. And she said she didn't really want to be grouped with a movement, not just like New York school, but with anything, like even I don't want to be an experimental poet or something. She said that her speech is the voice of the new wife and the new mother in her own time, and her first aim was to make a poem rather than present a platform or a platform of social reform or anything like that. But she was quite a model. She did live in Paris most of the rest of her life after she married Doug Oliver, and so she wasn't really part of the American literary scene in a kind of direct way, but she was always an influence from there. Powerful figure. Please look up her works, especially, so I was just very captivated by one of her earlier books, which she did a selected very early, and the poems collected in her selected, which I think was done by Talisman. I don't know, Matt, you're shaking. Yeah, Talisman, I think it was. So, and it's a slim selected, but everything in there is really delicious. So look her up. She died in May, and in Paris, where she had lived for decades. So I want to read and raise a glass to Alice. These are two poems that when I was teaching, women's poetry classes, I always taught these poems. White Phosphorus. It's a major work. I don't know if some of you know White Phosphorus, but it's a great anti-war poem that was written after the Vietnam War about her brother who suffered PTSD in Vietnam War. And everything in it is in quotes, but the individual phrases are in quotes, so they all link together. But it sounds like she's sampling like a collective speech, and it weaves this sort of rug of collectivity in the speech, even though she's writing all the phrases. But the effect of the punctuation is quite profound. So I'm going to read a little piece of that, and you can overhear. It's really more effective if you see like every single line is full of quotation marks. In this moment, before anyone ever died, before we were born, in this moment, forever before we went to a war, before we died, in this moment now, in this moment before, it is not before, in this very moment, where is it where we haven't died or died inside? In this moment, we haven't. In this moment, no one. In this moment, no one has ever died. But I have been born. In this moment, where is it? In moment, who's there? Catch it, moment where we are, merely as it is autonomous moment without a war, without a guilt. Can we exist outside of what was, in the air of our thoughtless female moment, in the air of our moment, not grievous, not iron moment, not air, but air of our moment. That kind of thing, and it's a whole book. It's very powerful. It's a powerful incantatory style. And she worked a lot with trance and hallucinatory states. This is a poem I just love. This is a very, very early poem when she was married to Ted Berrigan, and it sounds very New York schoolish to me, but I just love this little poem, and it's the opposite. It has no punctuation, and it just, the fluidity of this speech when it just like has this sieve-like affair. When I was alive, I wore a thin dress, bare shoulders, the heat of the white sun, and my black thin dress did envelop me, till I was a shell gladly, and breeze ruffled and filled against good legs the translucent fabric, and my heart transparent, as I walk toward Marion's and Helena's, as my skirt empties and fills with cooling air. Alice Notley. So please look up her work, and let's not forget her.
Thanks, Brenda. If you don't know Pierre Joris's poems for the millennium, which especially those first two, avant-garde 20th century poetry, it's a great starting place for you to get a sense of the innovative movements of that century, and highly recommended. The anthology is an art, isn't it, Greg Bem? Making anthologies, isn't it, Roxi Power? The anthology is an art, Katie Sarah Zale. Yeah, Greg Bem was brave enough to let us put together an anthology that he published called Winter in America Again, which is the main subject of our gathering here today. And so Greg, if you'd be so kind as to come up, talk a little bit about Carbonation Press, what the press is trying to do, maybe a little bit about this book, and I think that anytime someone puts in so much energy on a small press, which is not making any money, which is hopefully not losing money, this person is one of the most essential people of the community. So please welcome Carbonation Press publisher Greg Webb.
I just want to give a shout out and a cheers to the editors before I say anything, because I might not say anything good about it. About this process. No, I will. Cheers to all the people that helped make this book. Also, if anyone is looking for an option to cheers with, the strawberry rhubarb vermouth is quite good.
Strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah.
Wow. Now you tell me.
Don't take it.
That's good.
I am not a publisher by experience until after this really came out. I had no experience publishing anything. I had put together books for Carbonation, but I guess in some ways it still is very casual and very DIY. I really found the experience working with the brilliance of the editors and then the work that was submitted. Gosh, I just opened a C.A. Conrad, who I used to run around the streets of Philadelphia with, handing out political pamphlets to randos in the on 2 Street. Yeah, there's just like a lot of names here, those familiar and previously unfamiliar to me, and it just, yeah, it's emotional actually. I never thought that the anthology was going to be a part of Carbonation, what Carbonation was going to do, and it actually solidified a really interesting element of chaos into the identity of the press, because the initial vision for Carbonation was literally weird works that couldn't get published elsewhere, that were not short enough to be a chapbook and maybe long enough to be a full-length release. The things that people just get rejected and then file away. That was the initial idea of Carbonation. Let's collect the miscellanea and put it out, and that will be beautiful. That will be a thing. That's the majority of my works. I write things and then file them away for forever. So how could I establish a sense of community and dialogue with authors through their works that otherwise weren't being engaged with? And since then, it has evolved. And this anthology was one of the steps into realizing that the press is a platform for a lot of different ideas and a diversity, a spectrum of aesthetics and goals through one's art that could change the world. I have said this in previous Winter in America readings, but some of the most profound works I've ever engaged with as a reader have been politically charged anthologies. Not only the ones that we know of here in the United States, but there's a lot that's being published in other parts of the world, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in India. It is a phenomenon, this type, this genre, this form of collective work and collective action. And so it was an incredible opportunity as a publisher and as a reader and as a writer and as a engaged individual, at least I hope I'm engaged a little bit, to commit to working on this in such a time of suppression too. I'm a librarian, so suppression is like something I have to think about every day. Even when it's like not necessarily happening in my library, I'm like 1 degree removed from libraries where books are being banned. If anyone's familiar with Eastern Washington, Liberty Lake, the schools there have succeeded in actively banning books in their schools and in their public libraries. So it's on my mind. And so this kind of liberatory act, this politically charged act, but also this very much emotionally, like from the heart type of collection, ended up really arousing like the work. And I think that's why it feels so unique in a way. This is why you should buy this book. It feels unique. The thing is, when Paul initially approached me about an anthology that was going to comment on the state of things in a way that wasn't demeaning or derogatory or overtly scathing, it piqued my interest because that is my norm. I, like everybody else, am doom scrolling my life away. And so I know what hatred feels like. And I know what anger and what name calling looks like. I am numb to that. This book is a counter, is a foil to the everyday experience that we have collectively, maybe not individually, but collectively in this society, where that is the weapon of choice, where superficial attacks and the idiocracy kind of thing is what our everyday experience is like. So it is a heightened text. It has transformed the press into thinking about new ways the press can be more fundamentally radical and constantly radical. I think really when we understand what radical means, it's more than just one-off. It's ongoing evolution. And so in that way, it has been an amazing opportunity for the press and for myself. So yeah, thanks for helping make it, everybody in this room that helped make it. And
You have copies for sale right here.
there are copies. There are 5 whole books. And I would love to leave them in your hands and not bring them back to Spokane. I'll turn it back over. Thank you, everyone.
A few years ago, I did a week. I got a scholarship to the Community of Writers. I had a Thursday workshop with Bob Hass. I thought I'd try and write something in his style, sort of a lyric essay, double space kind of thing. And then when I got the idea to honor Gil Scott-Heron in response to the election of Caudillo, it was decided to use this form. And so this is sort of the title track of the book, Winter in America Again. And the Wanda I'm referring to is Wanda Coleman. And so I tried to channel her spirit a little bit in this. Wanda's words were, "When under the gun, who has time to keep a war journal?" So lays down the task for reality government 2.0, WWF style FBI and CIA ought to scare the lion-hearted. Yet here we sit, wonder how the common people prosper, how withstand bomb cyclones of the atmospheric and cultural, make friends with all enemies within. We once called it intersectionality and found harmony lacking, though Brenda said Occupy gave us clues. In partial November sun, we seek allies. Winter's but one season, though this one's run set for 1,461 days, not counting last days between the neoliberal and the WWFification of we the people. An eagle at Zazen's end in need of breakfast, past the candlelight guides Thursday meditation. Vowed to harm nothing here, vowed to enter Dharma gates, one of which may be this winter again in U.S. America. This is not bottomless dark. There is no bottom but sky. No sky can't be nourished with what the small intestine won't need. No beginnings except after endings we must respect, choking on the fumes of the neoliberal. Du Fu, watching the aura's gold and silver grace nights. Michael McClure, reducing it to a grrr. Olson bleeding the polis, which he knew somehow in the 50s was eyes. Joanne Kiger in the Bolinas backyard, quail counting, the last days of eco-poetics. Worried nature poetry is Brenda's definition of eco-poetics. And with each whiff of worry redirected into the prayer rug, we remember our vow to the numberless beings to free them. The crow murder hightailing it to the roost before the bomb cyclone. The Doug Fir smashing the empty metro bus. Those who would guard congressional bathrooms rather than legislate for the polis. So goes the end of empire, which can't withstand the depths of the Aquarian age, or whatever juju stands in the way of he who won't be named and his cabinet of predators. My war journal has begun as you are my witness and as history attempts to repeat itself in the home of the brave. The person who called me the day after the election to say, "What would Sam do?" is here in the house. She was the co-editor, one of the co-editors of Winter in America Again. She came here from Tucson, and she's freezing her ass off. Please welcome Katie Sarah Zale.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to a little bit more about how this got started and why it's important to me, because it makes me realize that how poets can come together as a community to accomplish something like this book. I mean, for us, true, I called up Paul, tears in my eyes, what are we going to do? And I said, I really think, just like Sam did with Poets Against the War, we should do a call for poems. And he said, and yes, and we should put an anthology, and we should get it out before the inauguration, which was, 2 months. And I went, okay. But then it was a process, and when I speak to community more, is that each of us went out and looked for more editors, because we thought, as a result of the experience of Poets Against the War, they got thousands, and they needed, I don't know, I think it was like 34 editors were reading the poems, but they were only reading a portion of them. What we did is all of us read all of them and talked about all of them. I want you to understand, we did. We read them to ourselves. We read them in a group out loud. We talked about, hours and hours every single day. It was really a work of passion, for us. And we learned from each other. We learned so much. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. Now we know a little bit, a little bit more.
And yet we're going to do it again.
And yeah, we yelled at each other, we hugged each other, we laughed with each other. It was, again, a community project. And what I'd like to share today, I'm so tired of reading my stuff. I really want to say one thing that was really important to me is I write to incarcerated poets. And I was really pleased that one gal that I'm working with that's incarcerated in a Texas prison submitted a poem. And we decided we really would like to publish it in this, so I'd like to share that with you. Her name is Quanetta Harris. Letter to our descendants. Fear works in America. I write this from behind walls where we've always known what happens when power mistakes cruelty for strength. Fear works in America like a spell cast backward, making us pine for days when some of us were property and others were invisible. Fear works in America when we trust a man who lies as naturally as breathing to tell us who to fear while he picks our pockets clean. Fear works in America when we forget every lesson paid for in blood and bone about where hatred leads and what others really means. Fear works in America, but love works harder. In every raised fist, every spoken truth, every refused silence. From my cell, I see you, future child of this moment, reading these words and wondering how we let fear work so well that we became what we feared most.
Roxi getting to know and champion the work of a person who's incarcerated tells you a little bit about what makes this woman tick. Katie Sarah Zale. Please give her a hand for that. The book is so much richer to have Quanetta Harris's work in here. And Quanetta is suffering from breast cancer right now. So I know that not everybody has a prayer practice, but if you do, it might be nice to keep good thoughts, light a candle, and pray that the best outcome happen for this warrior of a woman who's putting up with life in a quote unquote institutional correction that at their base wants to punish people. And that's not what it's about. It's about rehabilitation. It's supposed to be about rehabilitation. It's bad enough you have your freedom taken away from you, but some of the things that happened in prison, as you know, with this new administration, they're getting worse and worse. What is the bottom line in this culture? I thought it was the Constitution. I thought it was habeas corpus. We're learning that we have to fight for these things. Every age has its own fascism, and Quanetta Harris is one of the ones fighting it for us from there. So keep good thoughts for her. Thank you. One of the other 8 editors of the book, Winter in America, again, is here in the house, here from Santa Cruz. Gave a beautiful reading at Kubota Garden. Please, a warm hand for Roxi Power.
Thank you. Paul wanted me to say a couple of words about Winter in America Still, which is we're assuming that it'll still be Winter in America by the midterm elections when we will have this new anthology out. So Paul, if you could start passing around these bookmarks, even if you're tired of swag, you can possibly fit another featherweight thing in your backpack. Take one so that you have information about the book. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Winter in America Still, we are giving these workshops based on what we put into Winter America again. So we will be talking on October 19th, which I think is on a Sunday, on Zoom. So go to winterinamerica.org, sign up, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about a Brenda poem or a Paul Hoover poem, but I tend to be someone who is kind of championing the, not the misfit toys from, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that Greg was talking about, but they are the experimental poets, but people who probably have a career in that. And we had so much poet lawyering conversations over the winter about who should go in, amongst 8 people. We have, thankfully, I think, decided on a different strategy for this one, which is to be more capacious in our aesthetic differences, to invite a neighborhood of aesthetic and communitarian differences rather than saying, what goes in this book should pass muster through the scrim of me, but just say, more like, Southern Manhattan. We can be neighborly with a Little Italy, Chinatown, so forth, and I welcome different aesthetics, than my own. So don't be afraid if you think, oh, Roxy's an experimental poet, or Katie's a Sam Hamill poet, or he's a bioregional poet. Just send something. And also beyond that, it's going to be trans-genre, or cross-genre, which is to say art, black and white, prose, and then the cross-genre work that I tend to anthologize in Viz Inter Arts. Now, in those anthologies, I was trying to create a neighborliness between genre communities, and this, I think, is, all sorts of communities. So, do you have any questions about Winter in America Still? Get it in soon. Why? Because I think I'm having back surgery in January, and I'd rather read it by December. Frankly, if I don't, then that's okay. Yes?
You read it on drugs.
I don't like drugs, but if I have to have drugs, like they tell me I do, then yes, I will read it on drugs. Go ahead. Katie.
Where do I submit?
So you submit by going to winterinamerica.org and go to submissions, and there will be a Google form that you will upload with your artist statement. Don't be intimidated. It's just like a little bit about what you like to do. And no more than 5 pieces of work of the sort that I mentioned. It really can be essays too, right? Commentary on the situation. It can be inter-artsy essays, lyrical essays, essays that explode the form, prose poems. Go ahead.
Performance.
Formless.
Performance.
Performance work. We love performance. Oh, and thank you, Katie. You should be doing this. So media links are welcome as well. If you, I think I'm going to be interviewing Ann Waldman by the end of the year. So of course I'm going to ask her for a link to a performance, things like that, and Edwin Torres and others. But you don't have to be them. You know, you can have a little film that we can include. Question. Greg, did I come? No, not like just a link to it. Like click on this little sucker. Maybe. Okay. Oh, we haven't talked to Greg about that. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. We just put that on the website. Sorry, Dad. Okay, I'm going to just read a quick poem because I've been up here for years already. This is called I Think We Have an Atmosphere. All weather is a prayer for causes, deracinated from each choice. The economy, the podcasts, the broligarchy, the Keurig, the water bottle, the plastic tub once filled with spinach float now in our future. Nylon nets catch in the throat. Untangle that. Such interiority is generic now. If x-rayed, we'd all be a hose so tangled we may end up united in the undertow just by chance. Inside our own weather, we tumble like semis down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, as they call I-80 in Wyoming. The Great Basin guffawing at us all. The greenery changes with each new rest stop, like watching channels, switching channels rather, as if we're in control. The upper registers of trees dance, watch over us in the gust. Can I dance with Republicans? Some prefer earth, wind, and fire, so yes? How it felt in 8th grade when you weren't quite cute enough and they made sure you knew. It's like the Fox News anchors. Those were my best friends back then. There's a standard poodle who knows how to win. It's my party. I'll incite if I want to. Well, he did grab the wheel, but not hard enough. Noose waits for any flickering spectacle, a site-specific installation for a metaphorical neck. Ours. It's why I can't sleep mornings. The thinness of that stem holding up the flower of my head as it sinks into the fog, willing to be shaped to the insurrection in one's mind. It leaves an imprint with clues for why they're clawing their way back to 1955. Why we fetishize the moment between winning a war against fascism and walking the Cold War path toward it. Democracy by any other name. If you name it and arm it, your polis will hold in any storm, like a well-sprayed hairdo, an updo like Audrey Hepburn's or Lana Turner's, the B-52s after the damage was done. Who's belly laughing now? It's been a nice long sleeping ride in the back seats of their Cadillacs where we've been allowed to sit silently in their atmosphere, breathing their Marlboro air. After tapping on the wheel for a chance to drive, we were knocked back to the middle of last century, our pinafore horror frozen on faces that hadn't yet screamed at the Beatles, hadn't yet seen Emmett Till. Bodies exploded on nightly news, the bringing down of America so we could bring ourselves up. Thank you.
Our next poet is Robert Lashley.
This poem is called Don't Go to the Po-Pos Who Stop and Frisk at Amtrak. I'm afraid you will get shot. Then I will die with your heart, my morning star. The thing without the something between the spirit and the tangible that makes purgatory bearable. Blue guards and body snatchers will run through and ransack, but will be starved by matter and not my soul. Then for her love, he turns to burning lavender, and concrete crowns of sage top spin above alleys, woodsides, and corners. Embers that rest around shadow men swing from death's gates to play tambourine. Their high notes are the sign that figures everything around them. that rebreaks and washes clean every chain in every courtyard, that melts every 44 revolution trumpet to a moving river of altars. In the corner churns those who cannot raise. In the concrete churns those who cannot raise. In every hood of a deli and deluxe squad car is replaced by the windows of our faces. Scavengers on his body and kneecaps go blind after shadow men affix their breakbeats. And the world will be lit by a neon upper room with rosebush thrones, colonnades of sage, and lilies that sweep the dead from 10,000 valleys. Light from the lights flashed on his body. Charged from the codes that turn to curses, it will rest on clouds of joy. Then they will see the lost tree of life and weep for its rarefied air. Then I will die with your heart, my morning star. Then they will know I was there. Thank you.
Alicia, are you ready?
Thank you.
Another reader from the beautiful Kubota Garden reading with a Sam Hammond poem that really touched me. Please welcome Alicia Hokanson. There you go. Is that about the right?
Yeah. So this poem is in the anthology, and I left my anthology at home, so I'm reading it from the book. This records an event, I think it was in 2017, when Brenda Hillman came to Seattle to read at Open Books, which was still in Wallingford at the time. So anyway, it's called In a Blue State.
You want to go down?
No, it's good. Is that okay? In a Blue State. After the campaign, the multiple despairs, the rift down the middle of the map, angry polemics on the Facebook pages, free floating anxiety and its sleepless nights. I read in today's paper that psychologists counsel self-care, try laughter, a long walk, a return to your art. Gather friends, play music, and turn off your devices. Find your way back to living in the local wonders. Autumn is still fanning gold flames in the gardens. Waxwings swerve and swoop before us, drunk on the abundance of the rowan's red berries. We step through the rain into the bright paths of maple and ginkgo, spreading rust and scarlet across the neighborhood street. The bookstore fills the small white space with poets and their friends, a transforming music. And after, were the poems too sad, she said. I said, the world is too sad, but you still need to tell it. As Emily on her journey left small packets tied with ribbons, and the lichens you studied in their chemical revolution sometimes take centuries to break the granite.
So many people in this room have helped make this festival come together. Joe and Kathy have been cooking meals for us, and we're so grateful for that. To not worry about how we're going to get fed. Like tonight, we're not going to worry about how we're going to get fed. We're going to have gumbo here in a minute. But to be able to focus on the work, come and get a hot meal, or for me, like a turkey sandwich to go, and be ready to come back and do the work. So thank you, Joe and Kathy. We love what you do. It's so good.
Thank you.
There are board members in the house, so I thank them too. Diane Elser and Matt Trease and Zach Charles. And I can't tell you how much easier this is by having Veronica Martinez as our administrative assistant. Who shares a hometown with Brenda Hillman, I think.
Katie's here, is it?
And Katie Sarah Zale, well, that's not her hometown, she lives there now. Tucson, shout out to Tucson. And another guy who's been moving our new amp and mic and all stuff, and with his partner Savannah has been taping all this so that we can provide a document for people who were not able to be here so they can get a sense of the kind of community that we're trying to build around resistance, around creating a polis, a community of people who are dedicated to human values in an age that values machines. He's my brother, he's my Spanish teacher, he's a brilliant poet, and I can't believe he's, gonna be 27 next month. Please welcome Zach Charles.
To the end of a better polis, a better community going forward, I'd like to offer this tree speak prayer before I read my poem. Winter storm. Last night's bomb cyclone, uprooting winds, alki and up the Cascades, snow and fog of crisp new breath. I am anxious even to write this, but if it is crap, at least in it there might be a seed. Because that almost a hurricane was nothing compared to what hit the Sonoran Desert's Basil's Italian restaurant last Saturday. Not really Sonoran, more Tucson. Every saguaro for 50 miles flung its arms up in shock, and I'm only telling you a fraction of the story. From now on, Pappy's birthday weekend marks the first winter storm. 15-16 November, water's warming, fueling the shaking of moisture and air. Excuse the language here. When Eloise called Jane a cunt and a slut and threatened to kick out Delilah too from the family after one Cosmo for the old lady who swears by their lukewarm SpaghettiOs. Bo called them SpaghettiOs and the whole waitstaff laughed. And swears she shouldn't have to deal with this, and swears all us motherfuckers are out to get her, dangerous immigrants into her life, swearing the kids need to see this, and looking at her across the table, the colors of blonde and orange and victimhood swearing remind me of a different orange-colored one, swearing through $200 million of ads that they will instruct via executive order every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age, with every word forcing their personal insecurities without consent onto queer and immigrant family histories, families like that of Angel forced to have these conversations. Get to know your rights, get ready, talk to your kids, look into how you're going to handle being detained, being deported. Swears like walls that uproot saguaros. One source swore page 6 to secrecy. Their hair color can vary wildly from dark blonde to light to bright orange, depending on how long their hairdresser can get them to sit still and let the color do its job. Gil Scott-Heron said nobody's fighting because nobody knows what to say. But if I learned anything last Saturday, after Eloise marched in a huff out of that dimly lit with faux stained glass lamps soap opera of a fucking dinner, and the waiters brought out the cake and we sang fucking happy birthday, I learned my family is fucking fighting with no fear of deportation. And words don't mean much to folks who never stop fucking talking. And fewer words, and staying still long enough to maintain eye contact means more when there just ain't much to say. Yes, Eloise, you should leave. Knowing when, that's the lesson in honesty George Washington teaches. I keep sighing watching this storm, roll in slow motion. It's deja vu in my human memory all over again. As Pappy said, this must be Phoebe's revenge from beyond the grave. I and the climates. The Constitution, that noble piece of paper, as Gil Scott Heron called it, whipped to shreds by the wind and fiery hail and rain. Meanwhile, if Moses were to come down from the mountain's peak, right now they would smash the stones they carried upon witnessing all the golden cow-haired Eloises and day one dictators claiming to be the closest to God, claiming to be of anything but the dirt and shit and stories left by those before them, those same pieces of God we're all made from. Thank you.
Of all the shitty things that have been done by the person in charge now, one of them that has really infuriated me, there's no reason whatsoever to do it. And to talk shit about Canadians is like the stupidest thing ever. Because these are people who are ready to apologize for just about anything that happens. You know, I saw a bus in Vancouver, and you know how the buses that go by here, they say Pritchard 7. I saw a bus in Canada and said, I'm sorry, or something like that, because it wasn't available. It's right on the buses there. So to piss a Canadian off, you have to work so fucking hard, you know? And why? The tourism from Canada is down 20 to 25%. We're 60%. In Bellingham, it's down 60%. Why? It makes no sense. Can you blame Canadians for saying, once you get your shit together, we'll come back to your country? Someone described being in Canada like living in an apartment above a meth lab. Really. And that's more accurate than we care to admit. So for the Canadians in the room, too, who came here, we so thank you. Buy them a drink, for crying out loud. Katie's mother is Canadian, and she's going to be moving back, I think. So if there's a good apartment in Comox, please let her know about it. She's read so beautifully. She was on a panel talking about swimming in the ocean. She's got work in winter in America again. Please welcome our sister, Lorin Medley.
I love this community, so it wasn't really as hard as Paul's making it out to be. I wrote this poem, Cascadia Poetry Festival 8. I was traveling back to Canada after the festival, the day of the election, and we all, the Canadians with me, we were talking about, well, are we going to check the results before we go to bed, or are we going to wake up and check them? And we had different answers to that, but anyway. What now? In the space between poetry and ballots cast, a split-toned tenor fathered in. Wet reed clamped the mouthpiece, fierce, placed a word, ampersand. The day will write itself, we promised, over 21 small songs, sake and salmon collars at Wabi Sabi. Readings at Newcomb Vivarium beside a 60-foot nurse log caged at the border between ecology and art. Western hemlock on life support. Not a flicker of bird here, just the human predicament. Recalled Pacific Wren's song, much larger than itself. Ink, ink of nuthatch, wind and snow on skin. Bob Pyle greened things up with Willapa, no stranger to bioregions or butterflies. In photographs, we all showed up green in the phosphorid light. On Pine Street, a water strider moved like a man, pulled at the cloth of his body, mimetic being and becoming. Bare-assed November. The MGM lion roared 3 times, looked to the right and back to center. November 3rd, 2024, Quincy Jones died in his sleep, our sleep uneasy. In dreams we flew into the reflection of trees in windows of well-intended office buildings, so real, so green. South of Point No Point, Liberty swam in the reasonable minds of whales. When the clipper slowed, you could hear God enter the room.
That was wonderful. And next up, we've got my sister, I keep calling her that, Theresa Whitehill, who is a world-famous book arts artist with work in many major collections, and obviously the author of the new collection that you heard her read from the other night, published by Carbonation Press, Dancing with La Muerta, and she used to be, I think, the poet laureate of Ukiah, right?
Yep.
Okay, give it up for Theresa.
Hi. Let's see, is that the right place? Okay, everybody hear me all right? Yeah. This is called Condoms, Naloxone. And it starts with a quote from the Portuguese poet Eugenio de Andrade from his poem Penniless Lovers. But at every gesture they made, a bird was born from their fingers and dazzled, vanished into space. Condoms, naloxone. What I found myself carrying in my purse, in this angle of sunlight at dawn, in the first quarter of the 21st, be it lap or century, or progress through a canto of 100 verses, in which half of them will be mangled or disordered, or survive written on skins used to hold buildings together when they aren't suffered for food. It hardly matters. History is washing us. Non-slip treads, light bulbs, single servings of the flanks of herd beasts. Love, of course, is welcome. And music fills out what time forgot to bargain for. Injectables that can reverse an overdose, leach fields, pie crust. You have to be able to pull these out of your shoulder bag at a moment's notice. And in order to do so, you have to remain standing, to endure love and its horrible freight, its adversaries. Eugenio, I say, give us access to all of that joy, to all of those poems in which you carry us on waves of first kisses and labia blossoming. Let this be a time of lovers and of the celebration of musical innovation and the hypnotic inevitability of defiance and of tenderness. The first aid kits of this time will be filled with such life-saving, soul-mending, tranquilizing, marsupial-sucking healing powders and tools and constantly renewable preludes to quiet afternoons. Picnic food for unexpected and spontaneous stoppages on the freeways in which crowds pour over the infrastructures of light and science. Swarming the courthouses, celebrating justice, enumerating the bygone species, laying claim to feverish, hysterical shopping excursions in which we ravage the shelves of local markets for all of their mythopoetic canned tunas and evanescent lubrications and camping gears. Packets of fizzies that can be combined with electronic votive candles to create microprocessors and run defunct energy systems, emergency blankets that can double as morning after poems, oranges in transmutable sacks, shields, condoms, naloxone.
Theresa Whitehill. Matt Trease. What were you ordering? Yeah. Did you get your order in? No. Oh, there he is. He's good. Keep the applause going for Matt Trease.
Hey. It's just a thrill to be in an anthology that is both resistant and also has a vision for community, for seeing that resistance as not necessarily ideological, but communal.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. So I'm gonna, Paul mentioned Wanda Coleman and that concept of the war journal, and in March of 2020, I realized this shit needs to get written down, what's going on. And not just, the blather that came across the news every day, but it was like that, what it's like to sit at home and worry about what's going on. And then, I kept that up for a good chunk of the year, writing a little prose poem every day. And I think there were about 100 of them in total. So I'm going to read one of those. This is from around middle September. So there was that period where everyone was able to get out and be out in the parks and spend a lot of time outside. Here in Seattle, it doesn't really rain much between July and October, except that at the end of August, beginning of September, we often tend to get the wildfire remnant coming in and being another fog on the city. So this is just after the smoke had been rolling in. So my body is a filter. The air is full of the disintegration of planetary history. We are losing our interstitial mind, and our lungs and kidneys and spleens are choking on it. Mars at a standstill, burning so hot with the collective rage fueling this year's novel apocalypse. We come again and again to the last days. Oh, Duncan, how many more times? How many more of these plagues will it take to let go of this deep-seated indignity that is America? A resource stolen, a new mythology of penance in place of "in the beginning was the Word," replaced with a slave master shouting, "You have to earn your keep." Ain't no one got enough back to break to become a child of God. It's a spiritual pyramid scheme we've been conned and left with. This burning wilderness, this Eden on fire. They're destroying the evidence and denial, and the rest of us can't breathe, forced to sit, to be still, and know the source of power. We've got it within us to flood this place, to bring the rain, to wash away the end of the world, to start anew. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a simple look of thank you and gratitude, rather than the angry poems that go out to show them how we can have hope. Because what they're trying to do is make it so we don't have hope and joy. What they're trying to do is put us in an angry state. They're baiting us. All the fascists do that. Berlusconi in Italy, you could name it. They bait and bait and bait. Don't take it. Be like that Chicago guy on the bicycle, getting away from ICE. Google that if you haven't seen that, right? All right, please welcome Brenda Hillman. I'll bring it down.
So my poem's short, so I'll give a long intro. My heart is so moved to read with you all, and also just to be here. So thank you for your poems and your lives. It's just we have to cling together. right after, the day after, so I do hypnotherapy for about 40 years. I've been doing it with a therapist and then by myself. And the day after the election, I did a little hypnotherapy session of my own, and the vision that came up, or the thing that came up, was just someone taking a giant saw to Florida and just sawing, and it was sawing Florida in half, and I mean, it was sort of horrifying, and it just bled, and it bled, and it bled. Florida just bled, and all of America just bled out into, the void. So, and then when Paul and Roxy, and thank you so much, Katie, Sarah, and Paul and Roxy for doing this. So when he asked for, and Roxy asked for a poem, the newspaper, and just one more thing, that my brother said that he wants his ashes rolled up into the last print copy of the New York Times, which, I mean, I thought that was he said it like a decade ago or something like that, and I thought that was a joke, but now I really think it's actually like possible that we won't have newspapers after a while. So this is called The Newspaper. Anyway, lots of love to you all. Let's continue the good work. The newspaper. Sunlight crosses the room, bearing elastic dust motes. Clouds graze steadily over the house. Trucks cross the suburbs. They have been cleared for departure. The mother scours the morning paper for facts and uplifting stories, laughing, almost a little snort. Maybe it's disbelief. Maybe it's puffs of air pushed out by her idea of God. In this line, it's the next century. In this line, the mother and her little laugh are gone. In this line, 2 ravens eat a carcass in Maryland. A hurried driver doesn't hit a fawn. The vote is being tallied, red seeping across the map and dripping from the thick finger of Florida into a sea of pre-named storms. The Red Sea rising, the small barge carrying corpses of fact and dreams, their bones wrapped together in newsprint.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm so delighted you're part of this community. It means a lot to me coming here. Thank you, Jews, for having us here tonight. We love Jews. Please make sure you tip. You tip 25% is in order tonight. For Culture, the Seattle Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs, the Rainier Beach Community Club, La Sala, the Rainier Beach Action Coalition, which is doing incredible work in this neighborhood, the Department of Bioregion. You saw Brandon Letzinger's slideshow yesterday morning. Yesterday morning, it feels like 1957 or something. So much has happened. For those of you who are still here at the last event, man, you must love poetry. Thank you. Thank you to all the supporters and volunteers and board of the Cascadia Poetry Festival. We'll see you next year, October 9, 10, and 11. No, there's one more poet. Jim Dott.
Okay. There's another storm a-coming. Pressure's gonna drop on you. Our apple trees hold their still green leaves until late November. Wannabe evergreens in the new regime of the Anthropocene. Then the pressure drops. A bomb cyclone clips our coast, blasts them loose, sails them across the yard, into the gutters, down the street. Brief, rainless respite, glimpse of the waning moon at dawn. Then another storm wheels in off the Pacific. Its peace always ephemeral, bringing rivers of rain, dumping ocean onto land. Seems bent on washing every riverbank, hillside, and garden out to sea. To sift down, and sleep for eons on the ocean's bed? Can you find peace in knowing that a long, long, long time from now, these sediments will be lifted into new mountains, be slowly, slowly eroded into gentle hills and fertile soils? Another storm's a-coming, pressure's gonna drop again. How will each of us weather it? And the next one, and the next. Alone like heron, hunched on a piling, head under wing. Like a float of coots, riding it out on the bay, tails to the wind. Or a flock of gulls, flapping hard to fly straight into it.
I'm performing an intervention before he gets to the mic. Without our dearest poet friend, visionary, who has been bringing us together so graciously and creatively for almost 10 years here. But I don't know, we all love you, Paul. And let's raise a glass first to Paul. And then get up on your feet if you can and give him a fucking standing ovation for Paul E. Nelson.
Thank you, brother.
He can't talk for the first time in his life. So are we going to have dinner or can you talk?
When I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, I looked to see what Louise Hay said about it. It says, "What's the use?" and look at blood disorders. And it said, lack of joy, lack of circulation of ideas. So when Evan Padilla told me in the Subud Hall that he believes that the foundation of joy is gratitude, the next morning I woke up, and as I was taking my thyroid medication, started giving thanks for Bhakti, for doing this work, for having a great view, for having 2 beautiful daughters. And it's like a free associative poem, and I've been doing it every day since then. And what I saw in looking in all of your eyes, that the ideas are beginning to circulate. Thank you for keeping me alive.